moving on to Bradford specifically, I guess, and Bradford City. I believe it was the Mansfield game when there was the organised applause. Was it in the 30th minute, I think? Just kind of tell us a bit about that day, and do you know how sort of that came about? Did someone organise that? Obviously, I think a lot of clubs across the country did it. How did it kind of feel having the stadium standing in solidarity?
Yeah, I'll kick us off, and I'm sure Peter had his own thoughts and his emotion to the day. That week, Russia invaded Ukraine, and I sort of immediately just reached out to Ryan Sparks, obviously the CEO of Bradford City, and basically just said, what could the club do? And I'll be honest, straight away he opened his arms and basically said, what can we do to help? Him, Mitch Shackleton, the commercial manager, and Lewis, the media guy, were all great. They were open to sort of anything. And basically, from our point of view, it was more just trying to raise awareness and making people aware of what's going on. Obviously, it was all over the news, but we wanted to. We felt football was a great platform to raise that awareness further. And obviously, with there being such a big community in Bradford and a big connection to Bradford City, we thought that was a perfect opportunity. So, like I said, yeah, we reached out to Ryan, had a couple of conversations. Ryan were very keen to support that. We ran through a few ideas, and obviously, as you said, we did the minute applause on the 30th minute. We went on the pitch at half time, and again, I'll be honest, I was a bit shocked personally, in particular with. I sort of expected the support from the Bradford City fans. Obviously, it's a great club. We've been through many of our own difficult times where the fans have always been there. But to see the Mansfield fans, there were over 2,000 of them, get involved, that they brought a lot of blue and yellow signs. And to join in, it was quite an emotional time just to see that, and see the club put an arm around the community at a very difficult time. So, yeah, from our point of view, the club are fantastic. It was a very emotional day, and they've been very good since then as well. It isn't just sort of they've done that and they've shut the door on us. They've been fantastic throughout, and we've seen that throughout Bradford. If I'm honest, we've seen that with Bradford Park Avenue. We've seen that at Bradford Bulls as well. Both jumped on and supported us and helped us where possible. But we've seen it throughout the city with a number of different things that we've gone from fundraising to contributions. So yeah, no, they've been fantastic. I'll let Pete come in there because I'm sure he's got his own thoughts and own emotions from that day as well.
Yeah, exactly. It was. I think we just woke up that week and we were like, "Is there anything we can do? What can we do?" And Mike had those conversations, and it kind of. I don't know if it was the first club that was suggesting it, but it kind of snowballed from just those guys randomly getting in touch with Bradford City to it being a wider thing, and obviously not just linked with football, as Mike said, but football is very, very noticeable, and it's in the public eye. So people take note when something happens at football, and to see not just Valley Parade like that, and a lot of grounds covered in the flag and standing in solidarity. And like Mike said, it was one of those where we were all down, we still are down, but we got the people who we go to games with, we go to the pub with, they stood around us when we needed. They put an arm around our shoulders, and that's something that I'll never forget. And they've just really appreciate, and it really hammers home what a club we've got, and what credits the fans are when the times are hard. So yeah, it was really good. And then, like Mike mentioned, some of the other things that the club's doing, the Football in the Community Foundation has been driving over to Romania, taking supplies over for some of the many refugees who are over in Romania, amongst other things. And yeah, it just means the world to us. Like I said, just the love and support that everyone's reached out and given to us. And then, like we said, that 30 minutes when the whole stadium was up applauding, and the northwest corner started chanting Ukraine. That's something that I'll never ever forget. Obviously, we'd have liked it in happier circumstances, but we appreciate the support regardless.
So, kind of, what is it specifically you'd say the club have done, and say Bradford more generally, and football more generally? Is it purely a public, as in being in the public eye, and it's helping with that raising of the solidarity, or is there more specific things that are being done that we're not seeing?
I think there's a mix of stuff. I think obviously there's the obvious of raising awareness, it being on sort of in the public eye. We've seen it across football with um, teams walking out in t-shirts, walking out with flags, signs, messages across LED and scoreboards. But again, there's been a lot of individual stuff, and just to name a couple of things off the top of my head, because all 72 clubs in the EFL and the 20 in the Premier League are sort of doing their own things to an extent. So if I sort of repeating what Pete mentioned, like you look at what Bradford City Community Foundation are doing, they've been doing collections at the shop and then taking that across to Romania, as Pete mentioned. I'm just picking a couple of clubs out off the top of my head. I saw Colchester were with their gate receipts were given X amount to support to certain charities in Ukraine. There's other clubs that have done like collections that have gone to certain charities, not just money collections, but clothes, sort of medical supplies, that type of stuff. So across football, really, there's been sort of a mix of different, shall I say, activations going on, and every sort of club have sort of took that on in their own way, and that's not just the clubs, by the way, as well. There's a number of fans and a number of supporters clubs associated to a lot of these clubs who are doing stuff off their own back as well. And I think that's the biggest thing for me that has really hit home is the support and how people have just come together. Like I said, people who don't have any association to Ukraine don't need to be doing any of this. But they want to do this, they want to help, and I think for me that's one of the biggest things that has hit home to me is how powerful the football world can be when they come together. And we've certainly seen that in particular with obviously with what's happening in Ukraine.
Just another question, football related. Do you kind of know, Peter or Mike, either of you, what the kind of impact has been on football in Ukraine itself, the season, and what kind of effects on clubs, players, the fixtures carrying on, or?
Yes, I'll jump in on this part. Yes, so the season has been stopped. They haven't cancelled, restarted, or voided or anything. But obviously, it's to gather in large numbers and play the sport that we all love. So that's had to completely stop. We've seen a lot of clubs who are in liberated territories now, around Kiev in particular, and their stadiums and infrastructures have been really badly damaged by the Russian occupation forces. I think one of the ones that was really highlighted this week was Andriy Yarmolenko's old club Desna Chernihiv, just north of Kiev, and their stadium is very badly damaged. So it's going to be a lot of work to get back up to standards to be able to play football again. Some of the bigger clubs. So just a bit of context. So the invasion happened before the season had restarted after the winter break. So a lot of the clubs were actually out of Ukraine at warm weather training centres when the invasion started. So a lot of the players were out of the country, which meant they were obviously not immediately directly impacted. But then obviously some of them were wanting to get back to families which were in occupied or conflict zones. And obviously you want to be close to your families at times like this just to help get them out if that was what it came to be. So there's currently no knowing when football might restart in Ukraine. The national team were meant to play World Cup playoffs against Scotland and then a potential final against Wales, which were meant to take place at the end of March, but obviously that couldn't happen. So they're hoping to schedule that in June. And just this week, in fact, today, Dynamo Kiev are playing their first game. They're playing a charity match in Warsaw to raise humanitarian funds for Ukraine. So it's going to be a slow kind of get back to it. That's the main suggestion at the minute. The bigger clubs, they will try and play friendly games throughout Europe. None have yet been suggested for the UK, but we're really, really hoping that either Dynamo Kiev or Shakhtar Donetsk can come over and play a game or two in the UK. And then obviously that is something that football fans in the UK can get behind. So if they happen, obviously buy a ticket and come along and show the support if those games go ahead. And then just some of the impacts on some of the players. None of the established international kind of players have signed up to fight or anything like that. And some of them now do have special dispensation to leave Ukraine to take part in such charity games. But some definitely at lower leagues. Some have joined up to join the territorial defences, and some of the players, unfortunately, have actually been killed. Just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, in the way of the Russian army. And obviously, countless fans are fighting. There's lots of ultras who have signed up to join battalions in the armed forces. So they're all going on the front lines and taking their club colours along with them. And it's going to be a long road back to get football to normalcy in Ukraine, even if suddenly the war stops and they can start again. The impact is going to be long. The financial impact will be devastating. So one of the things we have just started discussing is how, as football fans, could we kind of help that rebuild, and if it's, I don't know, getting equipment over so clubs or fans can buy footballs for youth academy players or something like that, or arrange friendly matches or charity games or something like that. We don't know the answers just yet, but it's just some of the things that we're thinking about. And I know there's a lot of creative minds out there who might come up with better ideas than us. But yeah, Ukrainian football is going to need support for a long time to come. But us fans are going to be there through and through. So we'll be following them as soon as we can again.